Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Bold Health. I'm Sarah Hodges, and if you've seen our Bold Health shows before, then you know that things are a little different. Firstly, I'm a different person. I'm an executive coach who specializes in coaching professionals in the life sciences and venture capital using a neurophysiological method. I'm also a health and wellness expert with certifications in brain-based coaching, health coaching, and formally personal training. And I'm from the Midwest, so most of my interviews will be remote even after the quarantine is over. Now, speaking of quarantine, that's going to be our focus for today as we dive deep into the mental health of the COVID crisis, starting with our first guest, a board-certified psychiatrist and an award-winning and best-selling author. Welcome, Dr. Carole Lieberman.
Thank you.
So, how do you think quarantine and self-isolation will affect everyone's mental health in the long term?
I think we are having more danger or more of a problem by isolation and loneliness than we would have had just from coronavirus. There have been studies way before coronavirus that proved that people who are in isolation and people who are lonely, two separate kinds of studies that they did, there are physical and psychological problems that come from that. Physical problems like because of the stress of that.
Of course.
Physical problems like cardiac problems, metabolic problems, low weakening of the immune system, and psychological problems like anxiety and depression, and even suicidal thoughts.
Absolutely. So, knowing that many of us don't have a choice, we have to be in quarantine, we have to be in self-isolation. What can we do? What is still within our power to keep ourselves from becoming too anxious or depressed during this time?
We really have to not just kind of sit around in our pajamas, but really concentrate on making an effort every day to do things that we know would be helpful to us physically and mentally. So for example, the first thing would be, and the most important thing, is greeting each day without feelings, oh, woe is me, but feelings of, this is a gift, this time is a gift. When we normally, before coronavirus, when we would go around to our jobs and all our other obligations, we'd be like on hamster wheels. I know I am, running here and running there and thinking, oh, I wish I had time to read that book, or I wish I had time to call that friend. And, we're so busy, we don't have the time or make the time to do it. Now we have nothing but time. So we can do all of these things, and we have to reframe it into that, and be thankful for the time to do all of these things that we have on our wish list to do. Then, of course, there are things that we can do, like one of my favorites to recommend is rescuing a pet, because it would make us feel very good, about ourselves if we rescued a pet. And the pet would be a comfort, pets love us unconditionally. And it would make us feel like we have to take better care of ourselves because the pet is depending upon us. Other things that we can do are make a list of people who we care about, family, friends, colleagues, and every day call at least 3 of them. Again, to sort of warm their hearts, to check up on them, make sure they're looking healthy enough if we do it by Zoom. And we need social supports. This whole thing, you might have heard recently that Dr. Fauci, who has been the voice of gloom and doom, I tweeted something about how he needs to take Psych 101, because he apparently never learned that when you stress people out with gloom and doom, stress, as I said, weakens the immune system, and he's really making all of us, and we are ourselves, if we have the television on 24/7 and hearing one story, it's basically the same stories, the numbers change because they're not necessarily accurate. But we stress ourselves out, and that is weakening our immune system and making us more vulnerable to getting coronavirus. So we have to turn off limit our media and instead do things that will really be fun or helpful. Like, amongst the things we may have wanted to learn would be French or cooking. We have lots of time to cook and things like that.
So essentially you're saying, wake up in the morning with a sense of gratitude, a sense of looking forward to the day, an opportunity to reframe, to, find all the things you love that you never had an opportunity to do before, and turn off the freaking TV. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, you've been in the thick of it. You have, not only are you helping just regular everyday people like me, handle our stress and find that silver lining, but you are also offering free services to medical professionals on the front line.
Yes.
What has that been like?
Yes. Because I didn't just go straight from medical school into a psychiatry residency, I did for a year and a half, I rotated through surgery and medicine, pediatrics and OBGYN, and then I did a straight year of medical internship. So I know what it feels like. I know what it feels like to be in the ICU. It's like, my advice, of course, doctors are telling patients to eat right, get enough sleep, and all that. And for the doctors and nurses on the front line, it's like, yes, they need to do that too, but it's almost an impossibility because when you have such a tsunami of patients coming in, you want to be there. You don't want to go to your, wherever you might be able to have to go and take a nap, because that's leaving your colleagues on the front lines. And so there's a tendency to want to just keep going round the clock. And of course, that's really dangerous. And I keep trying to tell them, then you won't be there for the next set of patients the next day, if you're not, don't give yourself enough rest. Same thing with eating. In the hospital, what you tend to eat, it's not like there's, food being served up to you. It's, it's vending machines. And so what are in the vending machines? Very unhealthy kinds of things. So you grab chocolate bars or sodas and things like that. Coffee, of course. And the hardest thing for people, medical staff on the front lines, is the dying, because the patients are in quarantine, and so the doctor or nurse are the last people that the patient sees instead of their loved ones. That's the hardest part of this. I mean, nobody wants to die, but the hardest part is dying alone. And so one of the things that I strongly recommend that medical staff do is to ask ahead of time, before the day when you think death is imminent, early on, ask them for the phone numbers of the 2 or 3 people who they most want to be with them, so to speak, when they die. And if you can provide that, that FaceTime with a loved one, that is, I'm getting chills talking about it, that is the biggest gift that you can give them, and to yourself, because you'll feel more fulfilled. Because really, of course, the thing that erodes or grates on medical professionals is losing all these patients.
Well, Dr. Carole, thank you so much for offering your time and your services.
Yes, it's pro bono. I don't know if you said that, but
yes,
it's pro bono.
no, yes, that the fact that it's free and that you are trying to remind them to prioritize their self-care, and also to help them navigate the difficult things that they're faced with, to help people transition, out of this lifetime. It's amazing work that you are doing, and thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing some really great concrete tips with our viewers.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
My next guest is a physical health expert. She is a performance coach and a host of Habits and Hustle podcasts. Welcome, Jennifer Cohen.
Thank you for having me, Sarah. This is great.
Absolutely. So a lot of people right now are struggling with mental health in their quarantine. How can physical movement help them?
Well, I tell people I've been doing a lot of these conversations, of course, recently. We're all basically quarantined, and I really believe that what I found is a through line with people, that for not just with this, but in general, that if you are moving your body and sweating, it does a lot for your your happiness, your mood. It helps with it helps elevate your mood, your endorphins, your serotonin levels. And especially now when people feel isolated or they feel overwhelmed, letting out that energy or sweating, even for 15 minutes a day, really tweaks and changes your outlook, your well-being, your, like I said, your mood. Just releasing that serotonin, those endorphins make a major difference.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. When we're in fight or flight and are having a stress response, we want to flee or fight. We want to mobilize our bodies. So it makes total sense that moving them can have an incredible well-being effect.
Well, I think also really what happens is when you are stuck and you feel isolated, you have a choice, right? People have a choice. You can either do nothing and feel sedentary and eat bonbons all day and watch Netflix because you just don't want to deal, or you can take the alternative route, right? And this could be a really good opportunity and a chance for people who otherwise maybe even wouldn't take their fitness or their health to the next level. They can actually do that. And, you know, it's been really nice to see a lot of people have been taking advantage of all the free workouts that are out right now and all these IGTV lives and meditation, free classes online for meditation, for yoga, for any kind of fitness, because, you know, it's free. So a lot of times people think that will be an opportunity to kind of start, and then that gets them into a habit and a ritual and a routine to really kind of benefit their mental health overall.
Yeah, so speaking of a starting place, for someone who's never done any exercise before, or maybe has been very resistant to it, how do you recommend they get started?
I think start small. I think anything that you try to do that's too much ends up can spiral and not really have long-lasting effects. So I say to people, you can get good results and really start making that shift mentally by doing basic movements that are just body weight exercises. You can start by doing a minute of squats, a minute of sit-ups, a minute of, and just walking around your block a couple of times, just to kind of get your blood circulating and to get moving. And I think once you start feeling the results of it, excuse me, that in itself is a good motivator to keep on going. But I think don't try to overwhelm yourself with becoming, having these great, these goals in mind that are really unrealistic. Pick something that's realistic. Like today, I'm going to walk around the block and I'm going to do 50 squats. Something simple like that. Or 20.
50 squats sounds like a lot.
I was going to put their body weight squats. Or, you know what I say? Like a lot of little tricks, like little mental tricks. Like while you're in the kitchen and you're waiting for the water to boil, do 10 squats and do 10 leg lifts on each side. Like, you know what I mean? Just so you're getting into the habit and into the mindset of moving your body, getting yourself used to being active, right? But I really do think that you need to sweat. So that should be kind of like the instigator to actually do like I said, a 15-minute, 10-minute circuit training. Maybe when you wake up in the morning, before you get yourself downstairs, or you do a little minute routine of those squats and the sit-ups, and then you can do it again later, just to kind of get yourself into motion.
Yeah, so it sounds like no matter what people are doing, that it's starting it with the intention of, I'm going to do some physical movement of some sort, but the ultimate goal of sweating. Is that what I'm hearing?
Exactly. And I think right now, because there's so much, you're in your house, if you're like me and you have kids and it's extremely hectic, it's a very easy time now sometimes to say, you know what, I don't have time for that because I have to homeschool my kids and I have to work and do everything else. But what I found and what research shows is that when you actually work out, it gives you more energy. It also gives you more productivity through the day, because your neurotransmitters actually are able to then basically not just give you more energy, but it lends your brain to have more productivity and more order and more focus. So then, like I think when we're in this situation, we have to all have a schedule that we make ourselves to kind of stay on point. And part of that schedule should incorporate some kind of physical movement. And I think you should do that earlier than later, because that gets you, that kind of starts off your day in the right direction.
Yeah, schedule has been a really common theme with all of our guests today, setting up a schedule to have some routine to build this stuff in. And I love what you're saying about the neurotransmitters. It helps incentivize us to really work that sweat up, to know that there's going to be a benefit, a payoff for our mental health. So really quick, are there any resources that you have available that our viewers can access?
I mean, there's so many resources right now. I think right now we have so much information. It could be an information overload. There is, like, I would say right now, you can go on YouTube. I mean, I have a book called Badass Body Goals, right? Which is a book that you can actually, it's a journal. You can actually track your workouts and your progress as you go while you're at home. And that's my book, but I'm not, to be honest with you, I just want people to move. They can use my stuff.
Awesome.
They can find somebody else. I think you can go on Google, you can go on YouTube and just put 5-minute ab workout, 5-minute butt workout. You can do something so simple like that, just to get started. There's also so many different, my podcast is called Habits and Hustle, which is all about the habits and routines of very successful people. But again, they don't have to listen to I could be one of many different information sources. I think really what you can do, there's so much information. Pick people that you kind of admire or like or have inspiration by, and glean into them, like find information from them. I think right now there's, like I said, so much information. The question is what you want to do. Like meditation right now has really been a big thing, and there's like a lot of these meditation apps or meditation, free meditation, like I said, on YouTube or on Instagram that you can just take part of, or like apps like Calm or Headspace, or there's so many different things.
There's so many easy ways to get started. Thank you so much. This is very inspiring, Jennifer. I'm going to go get an exercise in after we wrap up this interview. Thank you so much for being with us today and sharing these tips with our viewers.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Sarah.
So lastly, let's talk to a mother who, like so many people right now, is juggling working from home with caring for young children. She's the CEO of Master Brand Institute and the founder of Her Q. Welcome, Jennifer Kem.
Hey, Sarah. Nice to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for coming today. So Jennifer, tell me, how many children do you have and how old are they?
I have 3 children, and I have a 23-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And they're all in different parts of the country right now because of that. And so it is quite a juggle.
Absolutely. And how have you been doing with balancing your work with, say, your 5-year-old schoolwork?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think people think once you work from home, even outside of what's happening in the world right now, it's easier. It's actually more challenging because a 5-year-old doesn't care about the fact that you have to work. They actually don't care if you even have hobbies or self-care. All they care about is play with me, pay attention to me, love me, right? And so how we've been handling it is actually doing our best to maintain a routine in our household. And so, before we were locked in our homes, I used to actually leave the house and go to work, and my son would go to school. That was the routine in the morning. And so we've kind of made that what we do now. Like since we've been locked down, we literally say in the morning, have breakfast, I have some coffee, and I say, great, mommy's on her way to work right now, and I'll be at work until noon, and then we'll have lunch break, and then I'm actually going to come home for lunch, but I'm really just going upstairs to the attic where I'm right now, and he knows that, but he loved the idea of enacting it and making it like he was really going to school, and he actually does. He eats breakfast. His local school has his schoolwork all set up. Dad is the one shepherding through that. And so we've made it work. And then my 2 older daughters are both in college. And so, they are can you imagine for a college student all by themselves in the house?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
they can't even hang out with their friends. And so I've had to actually coach them on, here's how to put a little bit of discipline and movement into your life. And so it's just these routines that are helping us be sane and also still get work done.
That's awesome. So your 5-year-old has folded into the routine really well, it sounds like. How are your older two reacting to the new circumstances emotionally?
Yeah, they're bored. I mean, I think that's the
Sure.
main thing. And they're both social butterflies. And so that I think it's almost like they had to take the first week and a half as a form of almost grieving, if you will, around,
Of
okay,
course.
my social life is abruptly stopped. And so basically I told them, hey, here's your opportunity to become, they were kind of the social butterflies anyway. And I said, here's your opportunity to create and lead a group. So now they're doing like daily dance breaks with their friends on Zoom and doing things like that. They're even having, frankly, like, you know, champagne or whatever they're drinking, beer, you know, parties on the weekend. This past Easter Sunday, they all got together and had an Easter meal as single friends. And so they're finding creative ways to do that. And so are we in our household. So we're just trying really hard to, again, keep our sanity. Back to that whole thing is like, there's a point where you're going, oh God, I really want to get out of here. And we're just trying to like brainstorm all kinds of ideas of how we can stay active.
I love that. And I love how you have helped your daughters rise as leaders amongst their friends and set a good example for them. That's so
Thank you.
cool. So, question, do you think it would be easier to balance work if your 5-year-old didn't have schoolwork?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's that whole next level of um, guilt. You know, a lot of moms deal with guilt if they're working moms, even if they're stay-at-home moms. I think now more than ever, we're appreciating what women or even fathers are doing at home if they're choosing to also stay at home, because the level of discipline and routine needed to operate a household is a lot less than even going into an office. And an office, structure is given to you to some degree. You know, even if you
Yeah,
have your own business, it's given to you because there are policies and procedures and you do have to behave a certain way. At home, that's kind of off when you got a 5-year-old who's honestly wanting to be center of the world. And
of
so,
course.
you know, it definitely has been a lot of explaining, a lot of communicating, and allowing him to be heard, you know, because frankly, I need to get to work. I need to handle my stuff. And I've noticed that my level of patience has been challenged. And so, because he doesn't have anybody to talk to either. He's stuck with two adults, you know, and him in the house.
Of
And
course.
so that definitely has been challenging and also quite fun.
Cool. So speaking of which, how do you, what advice would you give to other working parents to bring that fun into their homes and maintain their sanity?
So just a couple of really quick tips. Number one, as I mentioned, structure and routine. Whatever your routine was pre-pandemic or pre getting on lockdown, find a way to simulate that in a fun way. And of course, you don't want to, like, kids aren't stupid. They understand, oh, I'm not going outside. But even saying, hey, this is kind of a weird time. This is a wild time. So tell you what, mommy and daddy still have to go to work. You have schoolwork. So this is kind of how we're going to lay it out. So I think communicating and then also just putting yourself in their shoes. What does that look like? What does that feel like for them? Not just the adult shoes, but the kids' shoes. I think the second thing is, one thing that we've implemented that's really worked is, again, lunch break. Now the benefit of this pandemic is I get to have lunch with my son every day, and I make it a thing, like, oh, it's lunch break time, so we're all going to eat around the table and eat a sandwich or whatever the case may be. And we talk about, isn't this cool that we get to have lunch? Because he missed lunchtime, because lunchtime is a social time for kids at school. And so we've invited a couple of his friends, parents, to kind of like, let's all have like lunchroom together. So we call it lunchroom. And then third thing is making sure that you shut your computer down at the same time you would when you were at your workplace. truly have a 9 to 5 schedule, if that makes sense, or if you have to modify it because you are working from home, try to communicate that as much as possible to your kid. And again, they're not totally going to sympathize with your work schedule, but we can do our best to explain it. And also, with the Zoom thing, again, a lot of us are using technology or Google Hangout or Skype to communicate right now for work and with just keep social or with our families. And we did a whole showing him how fun it is to have a Zoom dance party with his classmates. His teacher's also doing such a great job. She shows up for them every single day. So I got to give her credit for the way that she's showing up and teaching them how to do that. So.
Wow, thank you so much. It sounds like you've done an amazing job of helping your children rise as leaders, find the silver lining, and stick to those routines and really empathize with them so they feel heard. It's great advice to parents out there. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jennifer.
Thanks, Sarah.
That's our show. Thank you all for watching, and please stay healthy.